Hey, and welcome to nTRaaS. Today we're going to have just a little conversation about IT, IT in general type stuff. Kind of how I got started and whatnot. So back in 2003, I started studying at ITT Tech for an associate's in, computer networking. Now, I had my A+ when I was just got out of high school, I believe. So I knew a little bit about computers back when. But I had no real knowledge about, what IT was. So I went to ITT Tech. ITT Tech helped me realize how, large, it was in IT. You had, desktop support, NOC support, network engineering, systems engineering, Linux. Got my bachelor's in cybersecurity, so I learned a little bit about that. But the schooling was great, and it showed me what the world was, which is kind of what I needed, because, like I said, I didn't know anything about IT at all. But the thing that I did, I paid a fortune for, certifications. Back in the day when I was making, $6.25 an hour, $10 an hour. I mean, it was really difficult for me to get into a lot of that stuff. Today, I'm venturing to guess a lot of people have the same type of questions and issues. How do I gain access to home labs and things like that? Well, that's one of the big reasons why I started nTRaaS, was I wanted to give people the ability to, understand Linux, Windows Desktop, Windows Server, and whatnot. If I go to nTRaaS.com, one of the things was I want to have a place where people, of course, can come here and learn. They can come in, they can learn what they need to, and get a good understanding of what these things provide. However, the real reason was really more for training as a service, which, of course, I come over here, I have, this web page set up where I can basically sell people training. Basically a hosted lab. It's like you'll come in here and find something. I'll create a server for someone. Once we click on this particular server, now we'll have the ability to access, in this case, Windows Server 2019. So I'm hosting the lab for you, rather than, you creating your own. Yeah. Server 2019 data center. So I went out and got this license so people can come in here and, okay, well, that's cool. We created a domain controller, DHCP, other various things. And this would be a really good way of people to start learning and understanding Windows Server. Now, it really doesn't help just learning one server. We have the ability to provide more than one server, so you can learn replication. You can also get desktop operating systems, so you can really create your own real-to-life enterprise environment where you have all of your users, your computers, your group policy, things like that. It's like, as an example, you can come in here and create users and computers and really get a good understanding of how Active Directory works, at least in this case. And then, of course, one of the other big things is like group policy. Every time I've been interviewed for a systems admin or whatever position, they've always asked me what I knew about group policy and group policy objects, and how we have the ability to create organizational units in Active Directory users and computers. So I created identities, users, and then I have admins and groups. So you can come in here and create one for computers. And then under computers, you can create another one for, let's just say, servers or whatever. So any additional servers I have on my network will go here. And then in group policy, I have the ability to look at these entities and then provide the group policy objects. So we'll name this, map drives or something. That's probably under the user section, but it doesn't matter. So you'll see here where when you go to an OU, you have linked group policy objects, inheritance, delegation, things like that. So we get the default domain policy and map drives for any computer in this particular organizational unit. From here you can edit it and look at all the various policies and preferences that come with, group policy. So you're going to see here under all settings we have almost 2,500 settings just for administrative templates alone. Unless you actually take the time to go through and look and say, hey, what do I want to do? What do I need to do? Well, you may have to come in here and kind of learn, understand what you want to do. Like start menu and taskbars, notifications. Turn off notifications, network usage. And you can come in here and set that. So you're going to turn it off. And then under help, it tells you what it means, what it does, what happens if you enable or disable the setting. So, without taking the time to come in here and look at this, well, you may have a lot of problems working in IT or, during an interview. One of the things you'll say, oh, well, you can create startup and shutdown scripts for computers. You can look at deployed printers, various security settings such as account policies, local policies, event logs, etc. So getting your hands on the actual equipment and software is kind of one of the first steps. Now, the biggest problem I found in IT is how do I force myself to learn something? And I think that's a problem that a lot of people have. So, nTRaaS is great because it gives you the ability to run 2019 data center, and you get to look at that, and we can give you multiple virtual machines. I can provide Linux boxes, things like that. But if you want to get into like the network realm, one of the biggest things I will always tell people, if you want to learn networking, you have to put in place those devices you're going to be working with. Now, I personally use CDW because it's, one of the easiest and only ones for me to really use. The problem with CDW is that it's new equipment. And what I mean by that is, so if we want to learn the Cisco ASA, you could come here and buy a Cisco ASA, but it's all newer stuff. So you're going to sit here and be like, okay, you can get a 5506X with firepower for $1,200. That's a lot of money. A lot of money. But one of the things is, you can't get support unless you buy it new. So like Cisco SmartNet right here. If you want to be able to get support on this device or get updates to this device, you really need to have a SmartNet agreement. So in this case, we're going to click on this. Now all of a sudden our device is going up even a lot more in money. So we add this to cart, and you're going to see now that we have a $1,600 sell. So getting new equipment is the best idea, but if you can't afford that, you may have to look at alternatives. So $1,200 for an ASA. If we look at a Juniper SRX 300 as an example, we've got all the expensive stuff up front. So let's see, price low to high. Kind of doesn't look like they have any, and we're already getting to the $1,000 range. So let's look at eBay really quick. Say you wanted to get a Cisco Firepower 1010 appliance. You can come here and price lowest first. You can buy a Cisco Firepower 1010 for $600. Now, of course, you're saving a lot of money with this. You're going to get the Cisco Firepower appliance. You're going to be able to use it, but you're not going to be able to like get updates for it or whatnot. So it's kind of a way to start. I know $600 can be a lot of money, so let's take a look. Let's see if Juniper SRX300. So here's a Juniper SRX300 as low as 130 bucks. Here's one for 200, 300, 400. So when you're learning networking, you might have to slow down on what you're looking at in order to learn. Now, I know that's really difficult because if you're looking at getting Cisco certifications, you're really going to need that Cisco ASA and that Cisco Firepower. So if you can stretch it and you can afford it, an SRX would be a very good way to, start your learning. One of the problems with the Juniper SRX is that it's not Cisco, and it can be very difficult. So like, we're going to log into my SRX here, and it's all command line based. So if your company is running Cisco Firepower, well, it's going to be kind of hard to know that if you're working from a CLI application. However, getting something cheaper can, kind of lend you the ability to understand how networking works. So like show interfaces will show you, the configuration of various interfaces. As an example, we are connected to 0.254, so you can configure gig 001 and learn all the various options you can choose for configuring, the IPv4 address, IPv6 address. Then you'll have to learn about like security. How does security work, and what's, kind of the point of it? On a firewall, of course, it's not as easy as a router. You actually have to tell it what to do and what to allow. So we have a basic IDS screening option that I've configured for doing intrusion prevention on ping death, teardrop, source route optioning, SYN flooding, and land attacks. So my SRX will block these. And then of course you need to learn network address translation. So like as an example, I have source NAT rule set. So you create the rule set from trust to untrust. You create the rule, you match the source addressing, and then you tell it what to do. So source NAT, the interface. So the trust zone interface, the untrust interface. By creating this configuration allows me to get to the internet, basically. The other thing we have to worry about is policies. So just configuring NAT, isn't going to do anything. We also have to create a policy that allows communications from trust to untrust. We create that policy, we match the source address, destination address, application, and then of course permit. So I'll match a source address for my inside networks to anywhere, to any application, and then we'll permit it. So if my computer on 10.2.0.1 wants to go to 8.8.8.8, this policy here will allow that. So the policy will allow it, then it will net it, which of course allows me to get to the internet using source interface NAT. Let's see what else we have. We have to have policies for many different zone to zones, trust, untrust, trust, trust, untrust to trust, if you're allowing the internet inside, the Junos host itself, and of course the security zones. Now, as we saw before, we have our security zones. Trust to untrust, source address inside. So we come down here and we created our security zone of trust, given an address book, and allowed certain, traffic. We're allowing all ping, all protocols, and we configure this interface in this zone. For untrust, we do kind of the same thing. My untrust zone has this interface configured, and it's only allowing DHCP. So basically, I have internet through my service provider. I plug in my modem to gig 000, click. It gets an IP address from them. And then, of course, all my internal traffic uses this SRX300 as its gateway. We go back and look at the show interfaces. Once again, you're going to see DHCP on that untrusted interface and an internal IP address on the inside interface. If we do show in general, we have to come through and look at a lot of different configurations. System, services, there's our security we saw before, forwarding options, policies, zones. Here's our interface configs, and of course our routing options. The routing options is where we can specify our static routes. So my computer at 10.2.1.1 is going to have to go through another switch to be able to do that. If we do run show LLDP neighbors, SRX is turned off, so of course that's not going to work. So let's connect to my switch. So this thing says 2.0.100. So run show interfaces TERS, grep 10.2.0, and you're going to see that I am on this network. So the /24 says anything that's on this subnet is basically local. So we'll connect to my other switch here. And now you're going to see that we are on my switch. So show interfaces TERS. And I have all of my VLANs configured because it is a layer 3 switch. So anything on these networks here are now going to have those routes. So show route. So you're going to see we have all of our static routes. We're going to 10.2.0.254, which is the SRX. And then we have all of our direct networks. So directs and locals, we have some more static. So if I want to get to this network, I need to go to a different firewall. So, like I said, it really depends on what you want to do. If you want to learn Windows, it might be a good idea to, say, buy a computer with a decent amount of RAM, and you can run Hyper-V. If you have the ability to buy like a standalone machine, you could run Windows Server on that. Windows Server, or Windows Hyper-V Server, is free, the same way that ESXi is free. So if we come here and do Windows Hyper-V Server 2019, download, and we search for Microsoft. So Hyper-V Server, Microsoft.com. So we can come here and we can download Hyper-V Server 2019. Now keep in mind it might say evaluations, but Hyper-V Server is free. So if you do have a computer sitting around that's 64-bit and has virtualization available, you can create your own Hyper-V Server and learn how to create the VMs from that. Now, Microsoft is very complex-ish and difficult, in my opinion. So one of the other things you can do is you can come over here to VMware.com and you can download ESXi. So the vSphere Hypervisor, ESXi, this one is free. You can try their hands-on lab, do a trial, or you can download the hypervisor itself. Once again, you may have to create an account with VMware, but I mean, it's free, it's easy. Just click it. Make sure you use a real email address you can verify. And once you log in, you can download Hypervisor 7 Update 2A for free, and then install that on a standalone computer, and you can start learning and understanding how VMware works. And of course, as I said previously, we do provide Server 2019 and Windows 10 desktops. So if you want to have your training as a service, your hosted Windows, we can do that for you. Otherwise, creating your own lab with, old equipment. I mean, you can even come here and buy, say, a Cisco C220 M3 as an example. No RAM. RAM, 8 bays. I mean, here's one right here. You can get a C220 M3S server with two 4-core Xeon processors. Keep in mind this is version 1. This is really, really old stuff. But it comes with 8 gigs of RAM and it has two 15K drives. If you want to look for something a little better, or you want to play around with other various Windows systems or desktops, you can get something like a 64 gig system. So like right here, this is a version 1 yet again. However, this one would be nice because it's got two 2 gigahertz CPUs. I don't know how many cores it is, but it's got 64 gigs of RAM and it has a RAID controller, so you can put in your own hard drives. You might want to find one with hard drives, but I mean, this is also a viable option. You can come in here and buy a server. If you have an old computer lying around, you can always use that, as long as it meets the hardware requirements for running Hyper-V or ESXi. Linux is kind of the same way. If you want to learn Linux, you get yourself a server, install that, or you can create your ESXi or Hyper-V box and run, Linux virtual machines. As I said, we can provide that too with like Ubuntu and whatnot. And then of course switching. Juniper EX. I don't know if they have any 2200s. So if you want to learn layer 3 switching, Juniper is also very, very good. Keep in mind it's really, really old, so you're going to be learning things, but you get what you can afford, sorry to say. So let's see if we have a 2200C. So a Juniper Compact 12-port Ethernet. This is not PoE. You can get one for under $200. Here's one. Here's a PoE refurbished 12-port with 2 uplinks for $200. So, you have the ability to buy an nTRaaS firewall, a firepower appliance, hell, even a Palo Alto. PA 220 as an example. Let's see. Here you go, Palo Alto security appliance for $240. So I know it's going to add up, but if you want to learn Palo Alto, because a lot of enterprises are doing that, they have them on eBay. They also have the Firepower 1010s on eBay, the ASA 5506s, they have the Juniper EX 2200Cs, maybe the 2300s. Say you want to look at a Cisco 3560C. I'm not sure if they have any of these. So the difference between the 2960C is it's layer 2 only. I believe it does VLANs, but it doesn't do layer 3 switching. You'd want to get yourself a 3560C. Now this is an old one. The new ones are actually CXs. So let's see if we can find a CX. Okay, here we go. 3560CX, 8-port is $160. I mean, you're looking at, say, a Palo Alto at $240. A Cisco Firepower might run you about $700. I mean, granted, yes, you're looking at about $1,000 for a gateway and a switch. But let me tell you what, you're rocking that $100 D-Link or Linksys. Well, you're not learning anything from that. It's just sitting there, you plug in, it works, right? If you can spend some money, get yourself a firepower appliance, and plug that into your ISP, you get yourself an 8-port Cisco switch, you plug that in. Now guess what? Nothing's working. So how do you learn? What's the best way to learn? You learn by doing. All of a sudden, you don't have internet. So you're sitting here going, crap, I need to get this to work, otherwise I don't have internet and I don't have, YouTube and Voodoo to watch. So if you get something and you require yourself to use it, and you require yourself to learn it, you'll be able to move forward in IT. Because if you don't implement something, you don't learn how to use it, well, what's the point? You try to go to an IT interview and they ask you, say, hey, what is the configuration to set up ERGRP between a Cisco router and a Cisco switch, or a Firepower 1010 OSPF to a Cisco switch? Well, if you have the equipment, you'll be able to play around with it and learn that. One of the things I do to keep up as a network engineer, I've yet to see many people do this. So in my lab here and for nTRaaS, I have a Cisco ASA 5506. I have a Juniper SRX 300. I have a Palo Alto PA 220. I have a Juniper 2200C switch. I have a Cisco 3560 switch. And I have a bunch of servers. I have ESXi configured. I have Hyper-V configured. I give myself little projects. So I'm going to put my SRX as my gateway today. I'm required to learn that SRX. Okay, I'm done learning that. Let me put the ASA in. Now I have to learn the ASA. I take the ASA out, I put the firepower in. Now I learn the firepower. If I'm going to get a firepower appliance at work, what's the best way to learn firepower? Well, you get the device and you learn it. You use it. We're implementing FMC at my work. Well, what's the best way to learn FMC? Okay, well, I went on CDW and said, all right, I need a Cisco FMCV license. So here you go. Cisco Firepower Management Center on VMware. Okay, cool. So I can learn VMware while I'm implementing Cisco. Here you go. I can pay $380. I'll be able to license 2 devices. So I will buy 2 Firepower 1010s. I will create my VMware server. I'll install FMC. I'll attach both of those Firepower 1010s to FMC, and I'll be able to run through it in real time. I will make those 1010s my gateways. So unless I do this, unless I figure it out, I won't have internet or I won't be able to function, right? And guess what? Now that I have the 1010s and the FMC, when I go to work on Monday, I'll be like, yes, I already know how to do that, and I will implement and manage it. I mean, it's sad to say you're paying like $2,000 for, a piece of software, a server. ESXi is free, so I don't have to worry about that, and a couple of firepower appliances. Now keep in mind, those for starting out, this is a lot to take in, and probably something you will not be able to do for a while. However, getting your feet wet, you really, really need to have hands-on. For now, if you don't have the money to buy the equipment, well, buy the book. At least do some reading up on it. That way you can learn all of the different pieces of the device, get the CCNP Enterprise Core or the CCNP Security Core. Start reading through that and understanding what those devices can provide for you. And then once you save up some money, go out and buy yourself an ASA 5506 or that Firepower 1010. Now you're bettering yourself, you're learning, you will be able to get that network engineering role. it's been a long time. I've been in IT now for 16 years. It has taken me a long time, to get where I'm at. And one of my problems today is there's so many new pieces of software and things coming out that I need to do and learn. Like buying this FMC was great. Yeah, it sucked spending $380, but now I have it, I've learned it, and, there's my job security. I know how to do my job, and I can move into the future. So never get yourself down, about learning and not having money. There's a lot of, ways out there to continue to learn and whatnot, especially with nTRaaS here. I'm really hoping to create some, CCNA, CCNP, maybe even some Juniper and Palo Alto certification videos soon. It's been really difficult. Hopefully we'll move forward with that, and we'll get a lot of more people on board, maybe do some boot camps here in the near future. And yeah, so, in summary, if you want to get into IT, you really should look at all the options you have. Desktop, Windows Server, email exchange server, SQL Server if you like databases and that type of management. If you want to be a firewall engineer or a network engineer, phone systems, video systems, internet service providers, you kind of name it. There are so many options out there. You just have to introduce yourself to a lot of them and really kind of say, hey, I like this, I'm into this, or I have the aptitude for this. I'm a network engineer now, but when I started out my career, I was a systems administrator because, it was just easier. Windows Server, back in the day, of course, you can get the trial version for 6 months and play along with that. You can install it. Back when we had the virtual server on in Windows. Now we have Hyper-V, which is great. Windows 10 box. It's like, as an example, turn Windows features on and off. If you have a 64-bit computer, you can come in here and install Hyper-V on your Windows 10, or in my case, a Windows 11 box. By doing that, I create my Windows Server, and I'm now learning Windows Server because it's on my network and it is accessible. There are certain things you may need to do, like upgrading your RAM or getting a better SSD drive. But there are a lot of things you can start off with. I'm here, support at nTRaaS.com. If there's anything you want to see specifically, go ahead and ask. There's a lot of things that I do not have, like I don't have Panorama, but I do have a Palo Alto, so I will be going over that pretty soon. Otherwise, I'm still trying to, fill out a lot of this stuff, like CCNP Enterprise. I only really have a few things on, Enterprise here. Actually, I don't have anything on Enterprise, so yeah. CCNA, I think, is where it is. Yeah, there it is. So I have started on some CCNA stuff, so if you want to learn about Layer 2, Layer 3 switches, there's information here. I even have videos on these topics, so if there's anything specific, reach out. If there's any questions on what you should look at, what you should buy, what you should learn, yeah, just give me a shout, and hopefully we can get you moving forward on learning and figure out what you like to do in IT. So yeah, have a good rest of your Tuesday, and I'll probably be looking at doing my FMC video pretty soon. Once that's done, I'll probably do the Palo Alto video. I have it over here not doing much. And then work on the CCNA, continue with some of this training stuff. So I will catch y'all later.